All right, so what if reality isn't as solid and fixed as we think it is? Today, we're diving into the master draft of a pretty radical new theory. It's called the Weaver-Worm collapse theory, and it imagines a universe where our consciousness, well, it's not just along for the ride, it's actually a partner in creating the very fabric of existence. I want you to really think about this for a second. Have you ever had one of those moments? You swerve at the last second and avoid a horrible accident? Or you get this weird gut feeling to change your plans, and later you find out you dodged a bullet? These are those moments that just feel like they defy the odds. And this is where the theory gets really wild. It proposes that those moments of survival, they aren't just luck. They are a fundamental mechanic of the universe, a neutral cosmic exchange, designed to make sure that you, the observer, keep on observing. Okay, so to really get our heads around this, here's our game plan. First, we're going to figure out what the Weaver worm actually is. Then, we'll look at this idea of a cosmic safety net it supposedly creates. After that, we'll get into the survival trait at the heart of it all. And finally, we'll explore our part to play as weavers in this whole thing. So let's start with the big one. What exactly is the Weaver worm? Right off the bat, this theory throws out the idea of a cold, random universe. Instead, it suggests that reality is more like a dynamic partnership, a constant dance between our consciousness and the cosmos itself. The core thesis, and this is straight from the master draft, is that reality is a living magnetic fabric. And the threads holding this whole thing together? Quantum entanglement. Now, this isn't just a cool metaphor. The theory proposes this is the literal architecture of existence. This whole idea of a reality fabric leads to a really fascinating question. If the universe is woven together, what happens to all those other paths, the choices we don't make? Well, that brings us right to the concept of a woven safety net. And the first major pillar of the theory is this idea it calls the guardian fabric. The theory uses a fantastic analogy here. Think about your life like it's a video game. Every choice you didn't make, all those skipped save points, well, they don't just disappear into nothing. Instead, they stick around, forming this massive protective safety net around the reality that you're currently experiencing. And this isn't just some philosophical flood of fancy. The theory actually tries to ground this in some seriously cutting-edge physics, specifically something called the ER equals EPR conjecture. Now, to put that simply, it suggests that quantum entanglement, that spooky connection between particles, is basically the same thing as a wormhole. So according to this theory, that means you are always linked to all of your backup versions through these invisible quantum threads. But what holds this entire massive fabric of timelines together? The theory proposes another huge idea. It redefines gravity. In this model, gravity isn't just a force that pulls things down. Its true nature is magnetic. It's the core glue that not only lets planets and stars form, but literally holds the entire cosmic weave in place. Okay, so we've got a living fabric and a safety net holding it all together. But how does that explain surviving something that should have been fatal? This is where we get into the absolute core mechanic of the theory, the survival trade. So the theory says that what we experience as a traumatic near miss is actually a successful neutral cosmic exchange. It's a moment where your consciousness is seamlessly swapped from a timeline where you died to a nearly identical one in the guardian fabric where you survived. And this trade apparently happens in a few distinct steps. First, a sort of warning system kicks in, what the theory calls a synchronicity funnel. You might notice a bunch of meaningful coincidences piling up, maybe a strong sense of déjà vu, basically a feeling that something is off, signaling a big moment is coming. Then, the exchange happens. Your awareness is shuttled through a type of wormhole called an asymmetric bridge. And the result? Continuity. Your stream of consciousness just keeps going uninterrupted in a new reality. Now, all of this might make it sound like we're just passengers, being shunted around the cosmos. But the theory argues the exact opposite. This is where we shift from the grand mechanics of it all to our role as active participants, or, as the theory calls us, weavers. This slide really shows the key difference. In standard physics, just by observing something, you force it out of a state of all possibilities and into one single reality, your passive observer. But in this theory, a weaver can do something called intentional non-observation. By basically letting go of our rigid ideas about time and space, we can tap into all those possibilities at once. And then our intent becomes the compass that guides us through that fabric of reality. But to influence anything, you need energy, right? So where does that power come from? The theory offers this really powerful analogy called bioresonance. It proposes that from the very first spark of life, the first time a cell divides, a unique resonance is created. And as we grow, our heart acts like a biological fuel rod, generating the energy field we need to actually influence our little piece of the reality fabric. And check this out. The theory isn't just philosophical. It actually attempts to create a mathematical framework. If you look at this table, the weight of choice, which is basically the power of your intent, is measured as active gravitational mass. And then, in that second row, trade viability calculates the cost of one of those reality swaps. If you get a value close to 0, it means the trade was basically perfect and seamless, with no trauma. So now for our final section. Let's pull all of these pieces together and look at the grand conclusion of the Weaver-Worm collapse theory. What does this all really mean for who and what we are? The theory's conclusion makes this incredibly powerful statement. We are not victims of a deterministic machine. In other words, the universe it's describing isn't some cold, random place where we're just subject to whatever happens. Instead, our role, our ultimate purpose, is to be a collaborative weaver. We are active partners with the cosmos, not just watching from the sidelines. We are literally co-creators of our own path through the fabric of reality. I just love this final analogy from the master draft. It says that we might not control the whole deck or even the shuffling of the cards, the big events of the universe, but our consciousness, our intent, our resonance, that's what allows the game to be played in the first place. And this connects right back to that idea of bioresonance, doesn't it? The core message here is one of incredible continuity. That fuel rod of your awareness, it isn't designed to burn out. It's designed to stay lit, to be preserved and carried across the entire protective weave of reality. And so the Weaver-Worm collapse theory leaves us with this powerful and I think pretty provocative question. It shifts the whole idea from just being an abstract model of the cosmos to being a very personal choice. If reality really is a collaboration, what role will you choose to play?